This video is brought to you by the Craft Channel in association with Sizzix. For more information, visit www.sizzix.co.uk.
Hello and welcome to the Crafts Channel in association with Sizzix. I'm here with Angela, who's going to teach us how to make a Drunkards Path quilt. So where would I start with this?
Well, with this quilt we've used several colours, but today I'm just going to show cutting two colours.
Okay.
And we'll use the Big Shot machine alongside two Big L dies. One gives us the quarter circle and the other gives us the arc.
Brilliant.
And because this is a narrow machine and our fabric is wider, we'll fold our fabric. And it's important how you fold the fabric so you have no creases.
Okay.
So I usually fold it in half and then I would fold it back on itself and then I would fold that layer underneath. So it's like a concertina.
Okay.
And that way you know that all your folds are in the same place. So I pick up the die for the arc, put it on the cutting plate, and then my 4 layers of fabric I will place on top and complete the sandwich with the second cutting plate.
Yep.
And then I'm just going to feed this through the Big Shot machine. And when I've put this through, because there are 2 shapes on each die, I will have cut 8 pieces in one go.
Okay, and you need
42 of each shape. So you'll need 42 arcs.
To make it's kind of lap
to
size
make
baby
that lap
quilt.
size quilt, yes.
Or wall hanging.
And then, as you see, these are perfectly cut straight away. They fall apart.
And the brilliant thing about using Sizzix for quilting is that it's so accurate. So you're not wasting material in terms of having to do it again.
Yes,
it's always perfect.
And you know that the shape you cut will be the same each time. They've also, all the dies for quilting have got a 1/4 inch seam allowance allowed into it so that you've not got to work out what your seam allowance is. It's already there.
Okay.
So when you've cut your arcs, you'll then have the same process with the quarter circle.
Okay.
So we layer it up in exactly the same way. I've already got my fabric folded into the 4 layers.
Yeah.
You can, with some fabrics, you can cut more. So it's just a question of practice. Try with 2 layers to begin with, go to 4, try 6 if you want to. But then again, I'm just cutting another 4 layers at a time. So I've got 8 quarter circles. So it's very, very quick.
And it just cuts what you need as well.
It cuts what you need. So if you only want 2, then just cut 2. And then you just take them out.
Brilliant. And that's it's a perfect edge there.
It's the perfect edge. And because you're not handling it a lot, there's no fraying.
No.
So then we move on to pinning it together.
Yeah.
So to get the middle part, you fold your quarter circle in half and pinch the middle piece, and you do the same with the arc.
Okay.
So that
just to find the centre.
Just to find the centre, because if you don't get the centre, it's not going to match. And so then you would pin those together, which I have here. Just put a pin in, and then you'll move on to the end.
Is that right sides to right sides?
That's right sides to right sides.
Yeah.
With this fabric, it doesn't matter. There's not a right and wrong side. But if it was a pattern, then you'd need to make sure you put your right sides together.
Yeah.
And so then that's the way you pin, and you just progress. You keep your edges together and make sure that you pin with the edges together.
Because some quilters, curves are they're a bit tricky to do, but I think this makes it so simple just because you don't have to cut anything out.
That's right, and because you know that the shapes fit together.
Yeah.
And if you're anxious, then put in extra pins so that when you stitch, you've got those edges together. Here's one that I've pinned completely along, and then either by machine, making sure that you keep to a 1/4 inch, or by hand doing a small running stitch, you would stitch those together.
Yeah.
And when you've done that, this is the effect you've got. So you've got one square that you would then join together in a row to start putting your quilt together.
So this is the patchwork side.
This is the patchwork side. So you'd turn it into rows. For that quilt, you'd make a row of 6 and you'd do 7 rows altogether.
Yeah.
And then you'd join the 7 rows to make one piece.
Okay. So, but you can also do it in different designs,
You can lay them out, you can play, when you've made all your squares, you can play with them and get different shapes. So that instead of going diagonally like that one does, this one curves round on itself.
Brilliant. Okay, so you're going to show us the quilting now.
Yes. So for the quilting, you have 3 layers. You have a backing, a wadding, and your top layer.
Yeah.
Now, to keep it smooth when you're working, you tape the backing down to keep it tight. Otherwise, you get pleats in the back.
Okay, and you just keep smoothing as you go.
You keep smoothing. So first of all, you lay down the back with the right side down, and you tape it down to the floor, to a table, whatever space you're using. So would you just like to tape that last edge? And while Abby's taping that edge, I'll tell you that you then put your wadding down and you start in the middle and you smooth it out to the edges. And when you've got that smooth, you then lay your pieced patchwork with the right side up on your wadding. And then safety pins are the easiest thing to use. That would be lovely. And you just make sure that you pin. Don't go over a seam or somewhere where you're going to stitch.
And you pin through all the layers.
And you pin through all 3 layers. And you can usually pin about 6 inches apart.
And you smooth as you go.
You smooth as you go to keep it. And if necessary, take it out, smooth it again.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you've got that all pinned, you can take this tape away so that you can work with it.
Yeah.
And then we will go on to this piece.
Which is bound, like this section.
Yes, but before you get to the binding, you would stitch. Now here, I've stitched by machine and I followed the design of the Drunkards Path.
Yeah.
Just outside the edge. And that holds all layers together.
Okay.
And then the last thing you do is the binding to finish the edge.
Because it gives it this kind of neat finish.
I like to think it's almost a frame.
Yeah.
And also it means that you've got a neat edge, you've got no raw edges exposed.
Yeah.
So to bind, I like to do a double binding because I find that easiest. So I cut a strip 2.5 inches wide and press it in half down the length. And then with the raw edges, I match the raw edges to the raw edge of the quilt and pin. Once I've pinned all along, I'll do a row of machining, again using a 1/4 inch seam.
Yeah. Is there a kind of special stitch length that you'd use?
No. You wouldn't want a really tiny stitch because of the thickness.
Yeah.
But obviously if you do a very large stitch, when you turn it over, it's going to show.
Yeah.
So I usually use just a sort of a 2.5 stitch. Then when you've done that, you turn it over to the back, which will then give you an edge like this, and you just do a small stitch into the back of the quilt, not going through all layers, just through the back,
just by hand,
and then a stitch in the fold, and then a stitch, and you stitch all the way around like that, so that edge is completely covered and it's nice and smooth.
Okay. So you can get lots of different kinds of dies. Can you get one for the binding as well?
Yes, you can get a 2.5 inch strip.
Yeah.
And the 2.5 inch strip comes in this width.
Yeah.
So although it's longer, it will still fit in this big shop machine.
And you can just kind of cut material.
You can.
Continually.
You would just need to buy the longer cutting pads.
Okay.
But the long dies will feed through this.
Yeah.
As long as they're no wider than this die.
Okay.
And you can get squares, triangles.
Yeah, because you've made a few different kinds of projects here.
Yes. And this one I like because it's got quite a variety in it, in the colours, but it's just a square.
Yeah.
And so you can do something very simple but be very effective.
All right, brilliant. Thanks for showing me that, Angela. That's all we have time for here today on the Crafts channel. For more quilting ideas, visit www.sizzix.co.uk/quilting.